Well, hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Youth Ministry Mentor. I'm your host, Tony Wolf, and in today's episode, we're going to do something just a little bit different. I've never done this before, but I'm going to do a response video, and we are going to tackle this idea of splitting middle school and high school ministry. And I watched a video recently from a YouTube leader named Kristen Lascola. She is a middle school pastor in California, and she had some really good thoughts, but I kind of wanted to just do a response to that video and share my thoughts. And so if you want to watch her video, she has a YouTube channel called Ministry Coach, and I'll put that link in the description below so you can watch that video. And first, I just wanted to say love that God is using her to do ministry. She has a ton of great information on her channel. It's called Ministry Coach. Follow it. She has a lot of great things to say. This is not a hate video. I am not here to say that her ministry is not good and you shouldn't do what she says. But I watched this video and I had some different thoughts that I just wanted to share. Just wanted to be real clear about that. And then I also wanted to just dive in and say a couple things. She is at a really successful, a very large church called North Coast Church. They have 9 campuses, and altogether they have about 15,000 people in attendance between those campuses. So, and she does middle school ministry of over 100 just middle schoolers. So fantastic. God is definitely using her to do some great things in youth ministry. But here's also a statistic that you may have heard me say or you may be familiar with. But 70% of churches in America have a weekly average attendance of 100 people or less. So while there are wildly successful ministries out there, there are very few. The vast majority of churches are small churches. And I just want you to take a second right now and think about your town, wherever you live, and just visually walk around that town and count how many small churches there are. I did this the other night. I came up with 15 churches that are just tiny, small churches dotted around our community. And there's really no large churches in our area. You have to kind of go to the next neighboring towns to find some bigger churches. And so if you're watching this video, and that's what this channel is all about, is helping you succeed in small church youth ministry. So here's a couple things I wanted to say about in response to her video. I'm going to tell you 4 things that she mentions. You'll see if you watch the video. One of the things that she says is if you combine high school and middle school ministry, you can't be excellent at both. And I would say I agree with that on a large scale. I mean, if you have a ton of kids, yeah, you really can't do both of those at their absolute best, okay? But not everybody has that. And so I'm talking to you, if your ministry, let's say you have 8 kids or 10 kids or 12 kids, and that's on a good night. You've got 12 kids on a good night. I'm not sure you can't do that in that context. I've been there. I've had youth ministries that are small. And in my opinion, while down the road, as the numbers grow, yes, I agree, 100% agree. It's a good idea to split both of those ministries. But I don't think that that's the answer when you're very small, okay? I think that you can do middle school and high school ministry. When you have 8 kids, you can minister to every one of them. You know all their names, you know their siblings' names, you know their parents' names, and you know all the sports and activities they're involved in. You can know each kid on a very personal level when you only have 8, whether they're 6th through 12th grade. Okay, so you can very, very successfully minister to those kids. And you can create a group that's pretty cohesive and I think you can do ministry pretty well. And I do think, again, down the road, you want to see those numbers grow and you want to get to a point where you can split. But Kristen would say she actually says at one point in her video that she would never, ever combine middle school and high school. I think she said at one point, she said, if I had 3 middle school kids and 2 high school kids, I would still split. Like, I would never combine them. And I just think, I don't agree with that. I just don't agree with that. She does make the point that middle schoolers and high schoolers have different needs, and I agree with that. And I will say this is the one thing that we agree on. I do think when it comes to teaching, it is essentially impossible to teach a 6th grader and a 12th grader at the same time and meet all of their needs and have them feel like they heard an excellent message that they got the most out of. That is a really wide age gap. And so I do think that the teaching should be separate if at all possible. Okay. So if I'm the youth pastor, if I can find just one other person that can teach, we can split off. And if you only have 6 kids, then maybe it just feels more like a small group. So I'm going to take 2 or 3 or 4 kids, and my partner's going to take the remaining kids, and we're just going to basically do kind of a small group lesson and a little discussion. That's totally cool. But I do think there's a benefit to that. But I don't think you have to you have to split everything and have it totally separate. The second thing that Kristen says is it's more difficult to grow. I don't know that I agree with that either. She says that high schoolers don't want to hang out with middle schoolers. They just don't. Now, again, I agree with her on the large scale. If you had 100 kids in a room, typically you're not going to see a lot of the high schoolers wanting and looking to go hang out with middle schoolers. They're going to want to split. They have different things, different. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Different things that they're interested in, different interests. But I think when you're small, if you only had 5 kids and you split them, I think it's even harder to grow. It's going to be really, really difficult for someone to say, hey, you should come check out my youth group. We have 2 students. It's fantastic. It's you have to come and check it out. I just think when you're that small, I don't know that that's the answer. I think when you can combine and you can have 8 kids, 10 kids, 12 kids, I think that it makes worship better. You have more kids involved. It just makes the worship experience feel a little bit better if that's something that you do. Even if it's just one person with an acoustic guitar playing some songs, I just feel like it's better. It feels, the more that are involved, it feels better. I think there's so many more possibilities you can play when you have 10 kids and you can split teams into 5 and 5 and do some kind of competition than if you have 2 or 3 kids. It just makes it really tough. And I just don't think that that's impossible. So I think that there's some advantages to doing worship, doing games, announcements, snacks. These things don't have to be separated. I think that it's maybe better in a small church with small numbers to combine those and feel like it makes you feel like you're part of a bigger group. You feel like you're part of a more successful youth ministry. Now, again, at some point, I think that's definitely worth exploring, splitting that. The third thing that Kristen says is that parents of middle school kids don't want their students hanging out with high school kids. I agree with Kristen, again, on a large scale. If I was dropping my middle schooler off at a conference and there was, 200 kids there and there's going to be a lot of high school kids there, I'd be a little more hesitant. I'd be a little more concerned. But again, if you're at a small church, not that many people, you have 100 people or less, maybe around 100 people at your church, you know every single person's name, you know their parents, you know their siblings, you know the families, they all know each other. I don't think it's maybe that alarming to have a combined middle school and high school kid group where I'm going to drop off my middle schoolers with the high schoolers. I've done that for a very long time, and I've never had issues with that. In fact, parents kind of enjoyed it because they could drop both of their kids off if they had a middle schooler and a high schooler. Drop them both off at the same program, pick them up at the same time, kind of 2 kill birds with 1 stone. I'm not saying you should do that just because it's convenient. That's not what I'm suggesting, but I'm saying I never had a parent that was alarmed and said, I'm comfortable with this. With a ton of kids, different story, different ball game. I get that. But I just don't think that that's like, I wouldn't split based off of that only. And then the last thing that I thought was interesting that Kristen said in her video was that if you treat your church like a small church, you will stay a small church. And again, all of these things I agree with to some level. I think that is true. Down the road, the longer, if you assume that you're a small church and you're only ever going to be a small church, and you continue to think like a small church, you will limit yourself and you will stay a small church. I agree with that. But what I don't agree with is, if you're a small church, that you need to adopt the model of a mega church and start acting like that. I think that would be ridiculous. I was just thinking, if I started a small business, me and a friend of mine, we're going to start a small business. Let's say it's a computer repair. And, it's the two of us and we're working out of my basement. Okay. Or we have a small little shop in town, a little storefront. You could make the argument, well, if you just think like a small business, you're only ever going to be a small business. That doesn't mean that we should just go, take on the model of Jeff Bezos and Amazon and start doing things today the way he does them today. I think that would be just ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. Now, I need to be looking at businesses that maybe have 3 and 4 and 5 employees, and how are they doing things and how can I get there? And then we start to look down the road and we try to grow to become that. And then we start to look at who's successful with 10 or 15 or 20 employees and how can we maybe get to that. So I think that same principle applies here. If you're a small church, be a small church. Let's not pretend that we're a mega church. We don't have to act like that just yet. But how can we grow? Okay, we do want to do relational ministry. We want to see more kids come. I think there's a benefit when you're small enough. If you're talking 6, 8, 10, 12 kids, I don't have any problem keeping them all together. I think that there's strength in numbers until you feel like you're at the point. And look at those numbers. If you have 8 high school kids and 2 middle school kids, maybe I'm okay with just bringing those middle school kids up and trying to minister to them and or vice versa. Maybe you have 2 high school kids and 8 middle school kids. And so you have some different dynamics. But if you get to that certain point that you've got enough, you reach that critical mass, now we can talk about splitting and doing things really well for both of those groups. So all that to say, love Kristen, love what she's doing, all, proud of her. This is not a hate video. But if you watch this video and you think, well, gosh, yeah, if I want to be a huge ministry, I have to split. I just have to do it right now, even if it's 2 high school, 2 middle school. I just want to encourage you to pump the brakes and think things through a little bit. And again, think about, all of our churches are so unique. So think about your culture, your church, your community. How are things working out for you? What are your dynamics? How are your parents? Who are your kids? How many of each do you have? And if you're at a small church, maybe don't just jump the gun too fast and think that you have to split middle school and high school and do them totally different. I personally don't have any problem with doing announcements, games, worship. We do a thing called Tell Me Something Good. We just share some sharing time about what's going good in our lives. Worship, all of these things, snacks, that doesn't have to be separate for me. The lesson time, if there's a way to do it, I would encourage you to try to do that. Okay. Other than that, I think it's really cool to have a combined youth ministry until a point. Now, I, again, 100% agree. At a certain point, if you got 20 and 20, let's split those and let's do 2 separate things, 2 separate programs, and let's start to grow those exponentially. I think that's a wonderful thing. So just something to think about today. And in closing, I would love to give you something for free because I love to give you free things. And so today's freebie will be in the description below. Again, you can get a copy of this if you want, or I'll put it up on the screen and you can just take a screenshot if you just want it on your phone. But I would love to give you this paper that has 20 ways to increase relational ministry. It's not really even that big of a deal. It's a lot of common sense stuff, but get you thinking. And if you read through these 20 things and you're thinking, how can I do ministry is great, but how can I do relational ministry? How can I connect with my kids? How can I connect with my parents in a way that's more than me just being a teacher and my kids being a student? And that's it. Because we all know ministry is a lot more than that. So feel free to enjoy that. I hope it's a benefit to you. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, just hit the like button right there. It takes you 1 second. If you think someone else might benefit from this, share it with somebody else, other youth ministers that you might know or volunteers. Pass it along so that we can all learn and grow together. And I just need you to know this before we end the video. I definitely do love you. but not nearly as much as Jesus. God bless you guys.